Okay, so today it's embryology models. It's very small topic. So this is the last class for this academic year. I mean the syllabus. Today is the last day. So embryology models, like till now we've covered in this online classes the head and neck, then the CNS development as well as the heart development. So I'll just show some models and a few points related to it. I mean this is a practical class which you should be knowing the answers by now. Okay, so this is, I just put around 12 pictures of 12 models that are available in our department. So this first model is this one. I think I'll just move this. Okay. So here, so this is a model of, so whenever a model is given, you have to tell you what it is. So this is a model showing the developing heart tube. And in this heart tube, what you're seeing is there are circulations and constrictions. So you know that initially there are a pair of endothelial heart tubes. We'll ask you what is vasculogenesis, what is angiogenesis. So the two definitions you have to know. Then the location of the formation of the heart tube. So that is a splanchnochoric mesoderm or the cardiogenic mesoderm. And with the folding of the embryo, that is going to lie ventral to the developing foregut. Okay? And then they'll ask you, it is initially two tubes which become one. Okay, a single heart tube. And what are the biggest stages it goes through? So first, one single heart tube, it will become form these dilations and constrictions, and then it is going to go this looping will be there, cardiac looping and all that. So this part, they will be asking you what are the names. I hope you can tell them. So here we've got, this is the venous end and this is the arterial end. So heart tube is having two ends, and what is located here? This is sinus venosus. This is the primitive atrium. And then we have the primitive ventricle here, and then we've got the bulbus cordis, and this is the truncus arteriosus. So the same thing as well, you can just go through it. And this truncus arteriosus, this the distal part of it is the aortic sac from which the aortic arches. So if it is here, the aortic arches, they just go around and they meet the dorsal aorta. So then they may go up to the aortic arches and the derivatives of it. It's like everything is interlinked. They won't just stop with this. And again, the sinus venosus, they will ask, what are these two? So these are the horns of the sinus venosus, and each horn receives three veins: common cardinal vein, vitelline vein, and umbilical vein. And common cardinal is formed of, again, two veins, that is your anterior cardinal vein and the posterior cardinal vein. And then here, they will ask you, what is the fate of each of them? Like, what is the fate of these horns? Fate of sinus venosus. So this sinus venosus, like, all the blood is going more towards the right side and it merges with the right atrium. So you have in the gross anatomy, in the section of the chambers of the heart, you find that the right atrium is having a smooth part and a rough part. So the rough part is actually the original primitive atrium. Okay, the smooth one is the absorbed sinus venosus. So that they will ask you. Then this primitive atrium, after a septa forms, it forms the right and the left atria. And then this atrioventricular orifice here, they will form the atrioventricular canals, right and left. And so this primitive ventricle forms your left ventricle. Bulbus cordis forms your right ventricle. And with realignment, these two chambers, they are located along this right and left atrioventricular canals. And then truncus arteriosus. So this again divides truncus arteriosus. So it divides to form two arteries. One is a pulmonary artery and the other is your aorta. So like the derivatives. So that's about this first one. We've got 12. And then coming to here, so you can see this is a section of a model showing you the interior of the developing heart. And here the septa are not yet formed. So here, whatever this red color is, this is all the wall. Okay, and you can make out the formation of the four chambers, but they are not completely separated. Okay, so here you can see these are the two atria and these are the two ventricles. And if you come here, this is the right atrium, this is the left atrium. And you can see the sinus venosus opening. So this is a sinoatrial opening. And you can see something like this projecting here and here. So what is this one? This is septum intermedium. So dorsal and ventral endocardial cushions, they come together and they form one bar in between, that is the septum intermedium, onto which the septum which is separating the two atria comes and meets. So this is that. And this one is your atrioventricular orifice on the right side, and this is on the left side. Okay. And this one is what? This is your septum primum. So initially septum primum comes from here, and then there'll be a gap before it reaches your septum intermedium. So that is your foramen primum. Then after that, what's happening? As it comes and touches it, there'll be a stretch on the proximal part of this one, and then there will be some tiny holes that they appear, and finally a big foramen that forms by the time this reaches here. So this is your foramen secundum. Okay. Then you find another septum which is coming here from on its right side. This is septum secundum. So this is muscular, this is membranous. So in this model, it's like they're shown more, equal thickness, but actually this is more membranous. Okay, that's why you get another septum, that is your muscular, much more muscular compared to this, that is your septum secundum. So that comes here. Okay, and then this will form your foramen ovale. So whatever blood comes in, it goes this way. So foramen ovale here. Then you find your one more thing, this is septum spurium. So this formation of the right heart, I've told you before, I think on March 18th, before you left for your lockdown period. So this one is called a septum spurium. This is a sinoatrial opening. So where this one opens into this. Okay, so this moves a bit towards the right side. So into the right atrium. So all your venous blood is going to your right side. So right atrium. So here, this comes here. And this one is guarded by two valves. This is called as a right venous valve, and this is a left venous valve. So these septum spurium. So they'll ask you what is septum spurium and what is the fate of septum spurium. So this septum spurium here, along with the left venous valve, this merges with your septum secundum. Then what happens to the right venous valve? So meanwhile here, what open? Coronary sinus and inferior vena cava. Okay. So they will be forming the valves. If you remember the interior of the right atrium, there are openings of the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, coronary sinus, and many other foramina which open here into the venous blood opens. So mainly the major openings are the venous openings, that is your superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and coronary sinus. So superior vena cava is coming from above, so it is not guarded by any valve. Whereas inferior vena cava and coronary sinus are guarded by valves. So they'll ask you what is the embryological relation of these valves. So that is being formed by the right venous valve of sinoatrial orifice. You can just go through this. So this is a sinoatrial orifice. See, this is the opening. Okay, the same thing that's shown here. This is the septum primum which is still forming. But in this already septum primum reached here, foramen secundum form, and this is septum secundum. And these are the two valves, right and left venous valves. Okay, so this is flanked by these two valves here, and then these will be fusing above. This is septum spurium. The left one will be merging with the septum secundum which later forms, and this one will be forming the valve of vena cava inferior and the coronary sinus. So the fate of each they will be asking you, what happens to it. Then here you can make out, this is the same, the heart tube which you have seen previously. So here already they just folded. And you can make out the venous end with all these markings. Actually, I'll be removing all these labels in the examination. This is actually meaningless here. But this is sinus venosus, the two horns, and into the two horns, three pairs of veins that they will open. That is common cardinal, then the vitelline, and the umbilical veins. And then they'll be asking what is the fate of each of the vein. So vitelline veins, they mainly contribute to your portal vein, and the umbilical veins, the left is left, right is lost, and the umbilical vein brings in all the oxygenated blood from the placenta, and it will be giving it through the ductus venosus directly to the inferior vena cava. And cardinal veins, anterior and posterior, drain the anterior and the posterior parts of the developing embryo, and they bring the blood to the common cardinal, and that's how the venous drainage of the embryo proper. So again, they'll ask you the fate of it. You can just go through this more here. And so we have one more model showing the sinus venosus and the whatever is structures draining into it. So you've got a pair of vitelline veins, a pair of umbilical veins, then you've got a pair of common cardinal veins, and these are the anterior cardinals, these are the posterior cardinals. So the two anterior cardinals here, an anastomosis or an oblique communication, which was in future it is your brachiocephalic vein, the left brachiocephalic vein. And this part becomes your superior vena cava. So that part they'll ask you. So main is identification of what the model is about, and whatever structures you see that you have to be able to identify, and what is the fate of these structures. So this will be lost, and this will become your brachiocephalic vein, and then right and left together they'll be forming a superior vena cava. So same thing here. You can just see what are the remnants of it. Already I've told you in the previous class. It is a practical. I will not repeat it. Just see the models and see how much you know. Then coming to the congenital anomalies, we've got one model of the tetralogy of Fallot. So here you can see this one. The red one is representing the aorta. This is the pulmonary trunk and the two pulmonary arteries. The brown is all the wall of the heart. Okay, the wall of the heart is shown. And then here you can see the septation, and you can see it is incomplete. So in tetralogy of Fallot, there are four conditions which come under the tetralogy. So one is, so this is the pulmonic stenosis. Okay, so it gets narrowed, the pulmonic stenosis. Then all the blood, I mean, there's a lot of blood in the right ventricle, and to push it, it's like there'll be hypertrophy of the right ventricle, the pulmonic stenosis and right ventricular hypertrophy. And also you can make out here that there is a ventricular septal defect. So there's a VSD. So that's the third one. And you can see the aorta is directly over the, I mean, looking over the septal defect. So this is called as the overriding of the aorta. Overriding of the aorta. So these are the four conditions. So pulmonic stenosis, right ventricular hypertrophy, ventricular septal defect, and overriding of the aorta. So these four together come under tetralogy of Fallot. You can see the same here. Then this is the model showing you the development of the aortic arches. So initially the aortic arches, they connect the ventral aorta with the dorsal aorta. So we've got a pair of dorsal aorta in starting stage. Then later they fuse to form a single one. Okay, one dorsal aorta. So you can see the fusion. So ventral aorta and the dorsal aorta. And you can see these are all the aortic arches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one is rudimentary or transitory. And you've got the sixth. So they'll ask you what is the fate. So this previously I've already shown you all these diagrams. So they'll ask you what happens to the ventral aorta, what is the dorsal aorta, and the aortic arches. Then this is again the aortic arches here. You can see this is the common carotid with external and internal carotids. Then here you can see the subclavian, the 7-segmental artery. This is the arch of aorta, and you can see the pulmonary arteries, and this is your ductus arteriosus. So we've got 6 pairs of arches, of which the fifth one is transitory. We won't talk about it. The first pair of arches, they'll be forming the remnants of a very small part of your maxillary artery. The second one is stapedial. The third is going to devise your common carotids. And the fourth will be forming the, on the left side is the arch of aorta, and the right side will form a part of your subclavian artery. And then sixth, the pulmonary arteries here, as well as your ductus arteriosus. So this is a short note question also. Please prepare this one. Then here you can see this is a model of showing the developing neural tube. The model showing the developing neural tube. So the neural tube is the cranial part of it, which is destined from the brain, that will enlarge and it forms vesicles. So there are 3 brain vesicles. You've got a forebrain, midbrain, and a hindbrain vesicle. And then you can see these are all the foldings. There are flexures. So there are vesicles and flexures. So that's again here the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. These parts here. So what are the levels? So forebrain again, what it forms. The midbrain, what comes from it, and then the hindbrain, what it gives rise to. The rest of the neural tube, what it gives rise to. So it's spinal cord. You can just go through all this. So the forebrain is prosencephalon, then midbrain is mesencephalon, and then the hindbrain is your rhombencephalon, the derivatives. Again the same here. So the prosencephalon, again it gives rise to your telencephalon and diencephalon. Mesencephalon remains like that. And then the rhomben, again it gives rise to meson and myelencephalon. So what is it? You see, the rhombencephalon, you get all your the cerebellum, and then you've got the pons from your mesencephalon. And myelencephalon gives rise to a spinal cord. Sorry, medulla oblongata. derivatives. And here you can see, this is a showing, again here, the developing neural tube. And you can see this outpocketings here, again here. So what are these? So this actually is initially the prosencephalon. The prosencephalon becomes what? The telencephalon and diencephalon. So it gives rise to the buds, the telencephalic buds. So these later they grow and form your cerebral hemispheres. And this part here, this becomes your diencephalon. And from the diencephalon, you get an optic stalks, and then your optic cup, which forms the optic nerve. This part forms your optic nerve, and this optic cup, okay, this will be forming your retina. That is why the optic nerve and the retina are the extensions of your brain tissue. And then this is mesencephalon, this is rhombencephalon. So these markings, you don't have to bother about it, but you just remember that this is a model showing a developing neural tube with these telencephalic buds and your optic stalk and the optic cup. And the derivatives of optic stalk is the optic nerve and this cup from which the retina is going to develop. So same thing here. And then here, this is again important both in theory and as well as in practical. So here you can see this is the floor developing pharyngeal arches, especially the floor of the pharynx. You can see all these colors. So yellow is all the mesenchyme. And you can see the red one, which is the ectodermal lining. This is all endoderm. So endoderm, you're looking at the floor. And you can see these elevations, which are the lingual swellings, which will be forming your part of the tongue. Then here you can see the copula and then hypobranchial eminence and all that. And they'll ask you what is this, these three dots representing. So you've got a cartilage, the skeletal element, and you've got the artery, you've got the nerve. Nerve is not coming from the mesenchyme, rather from the adjacent neural tube. So again, which arch, what are the derivatives like that? They'll just go. And then here, this is development of the face is being shown here. So here you can see this is a frontonasal process which comes here. And this part is a stomodium around which the processes come. So this is your frontonasal process coming down like this. This is your mandibular arch or the first pharyngeal arch. And this gives one extension here, that is your maxillary process. So maxillary process of first arch, this is a mandibular process. Then hyoid, this is a third arch. And then they'll ask you about nerve supply. So whatever is developing from this ophthalmic division, maxillary division, and this is mandibular division of trigeminal nerve. Okay. And again, this is again dividing into the median and lateral nasal processes and all that. You just read about the development of face and you get the questions. So again, in theory also, you get this question frequently, like development of face, development of palate, anomalies of the face, anomalies of the palate, because this is something which we especially get question pediatrics to get to know about these cleft palate and the facial clefts conditions where it's like it ruins the life of the child. So you have to know about this in detail. So that's why the important questions are usually come in examinations. So that is it, just go through it. And also remember, whatever is forming a facial skeleton is both the head mesoderm and your neural crest cells. And the neural crest cells also are important for forming your conotruncal septum, which is important in the development of heart. And so any abnormalities in the migration of neural crest cells will cause facial abnormalities. And if such a child comes to you, check for the heart also. There could be some anomalies within the heart too, because of the common origin of that is your neural crest. So this is the last slide. So here you've got, this is the development of the face, and that you can see this is a cleft lip. So again here, how the cleft lip is formed, you have to talk about all the processes and all that. So this is unilateral cleft lip. You can have a median cleft lip. Or if these two maxillary and mandibular fail to fuse at the right place, then you can have a microstomia if it's too much. Or if it is much beyond, it is a macrostomia. So it's like that. And also the cleft lip and palate. We don't have the models, but we may be putting some charts for your examination. So I'll definitely be including the cleft palate if it's possible. So just go through all this. Okay, so that's about the embryology models for today.